for our county and the country, to have that conversation about what we can be doing better. And so coming into DeKalb County, I never actually done a police ride along with DeKalb Police, because in Clarkston, where I was mayor, we had a police department, and so I did police, ride alongs with Clarkston Police, and thanks to leadership DeKalb Marie, I did a DeKalb Fire ride along, but I just hadn't had a chance to do the DeKalb ride along, and so a few months ago, I reached out to Chief Ramos, and I actually was talking with someone from the district attorney's office who works alongside the gang unit with DeKalb Police, and I thought that was a really interesting, this sort of connective tissue of the district attorney working directly with the police for some of these major crime operations. And so I kind of said, like I'd like to come by and meet the gang units, and it turned into an 8-hour shift ride along. And I'll just share briefly that when I've done these ride-alongs before, nothing really happened, and it was sort of kind of low-key stuff. But on that day, I was at the police headquarters over there off of Lavissa Road, and I was in talking with the gang unit, just really getting an opportunity to learn about all the things that they're working on. That we do have organized gangs operating in Metro Atlanta, and they are violent, and they are coercive, and they recruit young people. And so they really gave me, I think, a very clear-eyed and kind of a wake-up call, quite honestly, about what they are dealing with. But about 30 minutes into sort of my little orientation, we got a call that there had been a murder in an apartment complex in Southwest DeKalb, in the South Precinct. And so because there was the possibility that a gang might be involved, I went with the lieutenant and the team to that murder scene. And what else can I say? But I don't think anyone ever wants to go to a murder scene. But I have a public servant's hat, and for me to see and understand what's going on in the real world, I think is part of my duty. And so, it's something you never hope to experience, but I did experience seeing a dead body, bullet holes, broken glass, blood everywhere, and just in the discussion, and I won't get into sort of the details of that, but it was clear that there was a lot more going on there, and we ended up, I think, because of some of the investments DeKalb Police have made, one of the flock cameras, which read license plates, picked up a hit on one of the potential suspects of the murder. And we went to, I'm not gonna say a high-speed chase, but it was a sort of a pursuit to another apartment complex in DeKalb County. And there was, kind of a standoff for a couple hours. And so I had the opportunity to really just, to really be in that moment of sort of the highest stakes, I think, that our officers and SWAT was there, patrol and gang unit were all there. Some of the highest stakes that I think you could ever imagine that would be that our public safety officials would have to deal with. And I'm proud to say, actually, that our last sort of visit on the ride along, we went by one of the apartment complexes where the gang unit really had identified that a particular gang, the PDE gang, was actively recruiting young people from this apartment complex. They had we spoke with the property managers, and they talked about how that the gangs were intimidating the managers. They were spray painting and disabling the security cameras. They were threatening some of the residents, and they were taking advantage, I think, of some of the situations that happened during COVID, where a lot of children were at home in virtual learning. And what I saw firsthand is sort of the care and the true community policing mindset that our DeKalb Police have, because what I saw was our gang unit leaders, talking with the property managers, talking about how they can support them, talking with the young people about the programs that DeKalb County is offering, and really just having a presence, because these property managers in this one complex really felt like they were under siege and had received their own death threats. And it was just a real eye-opening experience for me because no one expects and hopes that that would ever happen to them, but it is happening in some cases in our county. And I just remember leaving very full of optimism because we were talking about how we could support some of the young people. And for instance, one of the initiatives that we're looking at doing, Maria, is providing free broadband for this apartment complex, which is something that we can do under American Rescue Plan. And then, whether it's Police Athletic League or other community policing, there's some real opportunities there to sort of strengthen and support the residents who, for 95% of them are just trying to live their lives. And it just takes, 5% that kind of disrupt life and creates that tension and that violence, potential for violence. And so, yes, that was my experience. And I'm just really thankful for Chief Ramos for, helping arrange that. And then, of course, we've talked afterwards about, some of the things that we want to work on. And so I'm excited that there's a lot of possibility to help. But, the violent crime rise is real. It's being felt by community members, and it's not in all parts of the county, but in certain parts of the county, the community really feel like they're in trouble. And so I'm just very grateful, one, that we have such, I think, a caring and responsive police force. And then I think that, as CEO Thurman has laid out, we have a real strategy to expand the toolbox that our police and our other services are working on, which is why we're talking about.
Which is why we're here tonight. That is a perfect segue, because one of the key tools in that toolbox are the mental health services. And I don't think many people know about this organization. If you do, great. But we do have with us Renee Dryfoos from the Community Service Board. First, let's explain what the Community Service Board is, what CSB does. Welcome, Renee. Thank you for being here. I'm looking forward to talking a little bit about mental health services and how that helps law enforcement. Can you tell us what CSB is and what it does?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. The DeKalb Community Service Board is a public safety net provider of behavioral health and services for those that have intellectual and developmental disabilities. We provide services throughout the county, primarily for people that are uninsured or underinsured. We, as this public safety net, we take it very strongly that we are here to support the people in our community who need help. We have a lot of locations around the county, from outpatient, typical doctor office type locations to see psychiatrists and counselors. We have our crisis stabilization unit, which is actually a regional center for DeKalb, Fulton, and Clayton counties, serving individuals that are in crisis, either a mental health crisis or they might need detox from alcohol and drugs. We also have an opiate residential treatment program. We have a lot of case management services, wraparound services. We really want to work with the community to help really address the behavioral health needs in our community. I can go on and talk about some of our services that we're partnering with law enforcement, if you'd like. I can go ahead.
Yes,
now.
please.
Okay.
And any specifics to DeKalb County would be great.
Absolutely. So the first one I want to talk about is our mobile crisis unit. We have been partnered with DeKalb Police since the 1990s. I think, amazingly enough, DeKalb County has been a pioneer in the area of co-responder models for having police have a behavioral health clinician or nurse ride along in the patrol car to go out on calls that are behavioral health in nature. The great thing with that is that it helps to divert calls that are behavioral health to a unit that specializes in addressing the behavioral health needs. This way, the behavioral health clinician or nurse can help assess right there on the spot, help with determining, does this person need to go to the crisis center? Do they need outpatient services? Do they need information? And it can help keep people out of the criminal justice system by helping to address the behavioral health needs, helping to de-escalate someone that's in a crisis situation. That's our kind of like our crown jewel that we have in working with the police department. And we currently, with some of the funding that has come along recently from the county, we are going to be able to expand. And I know Chief Ramos has talked about wanting to move to having 2 patrol cars out on the street. We currently just have 1 that will be able to expand the reach of the mobile crisis team, and everything we can do to increase the reach of addressing behavioral health needs in the community, away from a police station, away from a jail, and really be able to bring individuals to the services that they need. It is a great opportunity for everybody. A couple other things that we are doing currently, we are starting up what's called a jail inreach service, where we will actually have case managers going into the jail, DeKalb County Jail, to help them with transitioning out if they have a behavioral health issue. We know that recidivism can come from individuals not getting connected up after being in jail. So we are looking forward to that opportunity to be able to expand our reach and helping individuals at every step of the line in their involvement with the criminal justice system to help them get to where they need to be and make sure that they get their services. I mean, it could even be helping them with connecting with housing, with other social service supports, not just the behavioral health issue on itself.
So you talked a little bit about the expanded funding. Commissioner Terry, I want to ask you to comment on this because this is a recent $1 million grant, I think, from DeKalb County to expand mental health services. And you are now on the board of the CSB. Can you talk a little bit about the plans for implementing that funding and your experience so far on that board?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it also is important to point out that the Community Service Board does receive funds from the state through sort of the other kind of federal and state healthcare channels, and certainly money from the county commissioners, and that the county commissioners have put more money into mental health in recent years. And so, when you talk about, taking action, it's the budget is where it's at. That's, if you want to take action, you got to spend money. And so, thankfully with the American Rescue Plan, we were able to send additional money down the pipeline to address some of the mental health challenges in our county. But Renee, actually, I wanted to ask Renee real quick. I mean, can you just talk about how many, people that y'all serve, in a year, and some of the capacity issues that still exist. I mean, it's a big county, and also I don't know, you don't want to get too political here, but let's just be honest. The state and federal governments support mental health, but it is something that is tremendously underfunded at all levels. And so it's something that we have to continue to work on and push, not just locally, but up the channels in terms of healthcare and other federal grant opportunities.
Yes, we tend to serve anywhere between 7,000 and 8,000 individuals per year, and that could be people we're seeing ongoing. It could be someone that we're seeing briefly through a crisis stabilization. And you're right. To be able to expand services, it takes funding. And Georgia is one of those states that receives not a lot of funding from the federal government for behavioral health services. I think we are fortunate right now with some of the federal funds that have been coming through because of COVID, that we've been able to receive additional funds to help us expand services. And we're so grateful for that. And we're so grateful for the county assisting and providing additional support as well. So yeah, anything that anyone can do to talk to your state legislators, your federal legislators, it's so important to really search for that funding There's funding now, but how long that will last, if they'll be able to sustain it over time, we hope they will.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing some of the services that are available, Renee. We're so glad that you could join us tonight. Now, I kind of want to move our conversation to another part of the justice system that I think is very important to talk about. When we think of the justice system, we really just think of it as a punitive system. But actually, there is quite a bit of rehabilitation that occurs in the court systems through the accountability courts. And we have with us tonight, Claudia Saari, who is our Chief Public Defender, who's going to talk a little bit about the accountability courts, what they are, how many we have, the graduates that go through this program. Welcome, Claudia. How are you?
Hi, thank you, Maria, and good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here tonight to talk a little bit about the accountability courts that we have in DeKalb County. And let me begin first by explaining a little bit what we mean by accountability court. So these courts are alternative sentencing options for people who suffer from substance use disorders and or mental illness. And so the goal of these courts, specialty courts, are really to reduce the recidivism. You know, we want to interrupt and break that cycle of arrest and incarceration with people who find themselves impacted by the criminal legal system, mainly because of their substance use or a mental health issue. And so it really is amazing to see people go through this program and to see them become really successful, productive citizens in our community and to see families reconnected. And it is a really difficult program, okay? The easiest thing to do is just lock someone up and put them into jail. The challenge and the more difficult thing is what can we do to address why did this person become impacted by the legal system and how can we help this person stay out of the legal system in the future? And so that's what the accountability courts do. These are voluntary programs. Someone has to be motivated and want to go through the accountability court program because, like I said, this is harder than any probation that they will get. There are a lot of requirements. There are different phases. It lasts anywhere from 12 to 24 months. There can be weekly court check-ins. There is intensive outpatient treatment that, depending upon the person's need, might include psychiatric care, individual therapy, medication, group counseling, life skills, coping strategies, and certain cognitive behavioral interventions. And those are just some of the programming that is involved in these courts. I'm so proud to be involved in the accountability courts in DeKalb County. Let me describe to you everything that we have. We have a lot of courts going on. My office represents the participants in each and every one of these courts. And so in Superior Court, we have 2 drug courts. We have a Track 1 drug court, which is for high risk, high needs people. We have a drug court Track 2, which is for people who have moderate risk or maybe fewer arrests, or they have some stable housing and employment. And we are, DeKalb County was the first in the state to have these 2 levels of treatment that depends on the person's needs and recidivism risk. So also in Superior Court, we have a felony mental health court that began in 2016, working with people who have serious mental health issues. We have a veterans treatment court. We work same with people who are veterans, but they also have substance use or mental health issues. And so between those accountability courts, we've had about 356 graduates so far that have graduated from this very rigorous program and returned to the community. In state court, which is misdemeanors, we have 2 separate DUI courts. They started back in 2004. and they have graduated about 1,031 participants to date. And they have the recidivism rate for the DUI courts right now, the latest figures that I saw is about 4%. So it is doing a drastic or having a significant impact on reducing crime and reducing recidivism rate here in DeKalb County. Also in state court, we have a misdemeanor mental health court, and it was actually the first in the state. So DeKalb County led the way. We established the first misdemeanor mental health court back in 2001. And since that time, we have enrolled more than 1,500 participants in that particular program. Then in juvenile court, we also have bring this same services and accountability courts to juvenile court. In juvenile court, we have the rebound drug court, which works with boys, males between the ages of 14 to 16 who have substance use issues. We have Journey in juvenile court, which is our juvenile mental health court. And that's working with young girls between the ages of 13 to 16 years old who have significant mental health problems. We have a brand new accountability court in juvenile court. It's called Inspire. And this is a family treatment court and is really working with parents and children who are in DeKalb Family and Children's Services custody and DFACS custody. And this is a new accountability court that we have that we just got started. DeKalb County, we saw the need to bring in families with children and to treat the family as a holistic manner. And so that's brand new. And then we also have the Commitment Alternative Program in juvenile court. That's called the CAP program. And that's really working with trying to help our young people who might have multiple delinquency offenses. And it's really trying to give them that intense treatment that they need so that they can return back to the community and stay away from the juvenile court proceeding. So that's just an overview of the many different courts that we have here in DeKalb County. And really what it tells and the success that we have seen is that we can hold people accountable for the wrongs that they may have committed, but we can promote public safety as well, hold them accountable without destroying their lives, without destroying the lives of their loved ones by just incarcerating them.
Claudia, I want to ask you a couple of questions. Is there a process by which you all identify the ideal candidates for these programs? And can you talk a little bit about that? Is it the number of arrests and, they appear before the same courts all the time, and then you dig a little deeper to find out what's really going on with people? I mean, how does it work?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so a majority of the referrals for all these programs actually come from my office, the Public Defender Office. We end up representing about 80% of all the felony cases in DeKalb County. We are also very fortunate, and thank you to the Board of Commissioners for supporting this. We have actually a team of social workers that work in the Public Defender's Office. We're the first Public Defender Office in the state to have and include that team so that we can provide this holistic representation to our clients. And so part of it is identifying from our clients, the clients that we serve is people that we think might benefit from these courts. And then we have a discussion with them about, are they interested? Because remember, this is volunteer. They have to volunteer to want to go into these programs. And we have those sort of conversations, but there are different requirements for the different courts. So for instance, drug court and track 1, when I mention that's for high risk, high needs, that is typically for people who may have 30 arrests, 40 arrests on the record, that they might have been really suffering from a substance use disorder for the last 20 years of their life. They may not have stable housing, no regular employment. And so that's what we call someone who really has high needs, but is at high risk for recidivizing. And so the track 1 candidate, and then what happens is we refer them, and this is a very collaborative effort. This is all the departments in DeKalb justice system collaborate for these courts. That means my office, the DA's office, solicitor's office, police, sheriff, the judges, everyone collaborates to make these courts happen. But we will refer them to the prosecutor. The prosecutor will review their record. If there is a victim involved, we'll make sure to bring the victim in to make sure that they don't have any objection to it being handled this way. And then they go for a clinical assessment. So each of the courts have usually a licensed clinical social worker who will do a clinical assessment and will determine, is this person, do we think we can help this person? Is this something that we can provide them? And from there, then it goes before the accountability court team, and then we bring them in. Most of these programs are post-plea. So most of them, the person will plead guilty, has to admit that they are pleading guilty to an offense, but sentencing is withheld. And if they complete the program, if they graduate, then at the end of the program, they're allowed to withdraw their guilty plea and the case is restricted from the record. So that's kind of the incentive, is also not only will you get the help that you need and lead a healthy and sober lifestyle, but you can also have an opportunity to have this particular offense removed from your record.
Wow. So what is the success rate, Claudia? Do you have people who go through the program and do well for a while, but then come back?
Yeah, I'm not able to give you those exact numbers or the particular statistics on that. We do, I've been involved in this. I'm one of the founding members and have been involved in this since 2002 is when we started the first drug court. I have seen that happen, but not very frequently is the best I can answer. I don't have the necessary statistics for you as for the recidivism rate for the drug court. But even though, it's interesting though, even when that has happened, and when I've had an opportunity to talk with that person, they still get so much from the drug court. They still learn so much that helps them, with the different skills that they're provided, that it's just helpful and a good program to support. But it has happened, but not very frequently.
Well, I want to ask you more about the Inspire court, because that is new. For those of you who don't know, Claudia and I have a little bit of history together. I was a former executive director of Leadership DeKalb, and we did a Justice Day program every year where Claudia presents and speaks. And that's how I know about the accountability courts. And Inspire is very new because I don't think that we've had a program day where we've talked about this. Talk about that holistic approach where you work with the entire family. And by the way, there is a new director of DFACS in DeKalb County. I don't know if you've had a chance to meet her, but I would love to make that introduction for you if you like. She's very new to the community and very new to DeKalb County, and is really going around getting to know the different entities that work with children and children's services. So, but anyway, tell us more about Inspire.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. And Judge Murray in our juvenile court, she is the presiding judge for this particular treatment court. And when I say it's new, I think it is maybe a year old now. And so
that's very new.
Yeah, so it's very new. But part of the reason why we thought it was really necessary to bring this to DeKalb County is, when you're representing a child in juvenile court who's been charged with a delinquency, charged with a criminal offense, from our perspective, you're not only representing the child, but you're representing the entire family, because that's just what needs to happen when you're representing a child in juvenile court with delinquency offenses. And so frequently, if the child has a substance abuse issue, or if a parent has a substance abuse issue, it reveals itself within the family unit. And because of the fractured family unit is why many times we see children in juvenile court and what we're representing them on. And so that was kind of the impetus to bring this kind of family treatment court to DeKalb County. So particularly, this is the family treatment court, what we're working on right now, and the grant money that they were able to get. It's working with parents who have children who are in defects custody, who were put in protective custody for a particular reason. And obviously the goal is to unite the child with the family. But in order to do that, they really have to have the children. There has to be a sober, healthy family environment to do that. So it's bringing them together to work on the substance use issues and how it impacts everybody in that particular family. So like I said, we're only about a year old. We can only take up to, I think, 10 participants, maybe 15 participants at this time. But we really hope to be able to expand it.
That's great. Congratulations. And do you all coordinate with the school district as well? Because it involves children and even children who are in these programs, do they continue to go to school? Is that part of?
Yeah, I mean, that's part of what they have to. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So someone I believe from the school is present or invited to the different meetings. But of course, a lot of the focus is on dealing with the substance use issues. But school is definitely involved, yes.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for that, Claudia, and thank you for talking about the accountability courts. I have had the honor of hearing testimonials from graduates from those courts and how much they really disrupt and change their lives. And frankly, they have literally said that it has saved their lives.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it is really, they work so hard. They work so hard to change their lives. And we're just so proud of them. But I agree with you. I mean, every graduation we have, everyone's just in tears of joy with really just how much they have overcome and just filled with hope.
Commissioner Terry, will you comment on the additional funding? Because you were telling me that Claudia's department has received additional funding from the county recently, right?
That's right. That's right. American Rescue Plan funds as part of the sort of the overall criminal justice and public safety and court, sort of support system. But Claudia can talk about the backlog. I think a lot of folks know that a lot of cases were just put on hold last year, and so, there were still crimes happening. There were still arrests being made. There were still, to a certain extent, some folks going to jail, although I believe most of them actually got bonded out almost immediately. But yeah, there's a backlog, and it's a problem because justice delayed is no justice. And so that's kind of first and foremost, is that there's individuals who have been waiting for their day in court, but haven't gotten it yet because of all of the pandemic restrictions. But Claudia, please talk about sort of how that's going and what you've been doing there.
Sure. And first, I am so grateful for the county for giving us some extra funding for this temporary personnel. COVID had a profound impact on the justice system that really will take several years to recover from. And throughout the pandemic, though, my office continued to serve the public. We represented clients at over 10,000 hearings, closed over 6,000 cases during the pandemic. But it has been quite a challenge because the entire court system had to all of a sudden, we were used to everything was done in person, and we had to pivot and move to some virtual hearings, which we've been able to really do successfully. Many thanks to DeKalb County's excellent IT department. And again, the additional funding from the Board of Commissioners with that. But the backlog is significant. I can share with you, my office currently has over 14,600 pending cases to be resolved. And so the additional funding that the Board of Commissioners generously gave us will fund some additional attorneys to help really speed those cases along, as the commissioner said, to make sure that justice is done in a timely manner, that the right result happens. And will enable us to really to fulfill the Sixth Amendment, that people are entitled to effective counsel when they are charged with criminal offenses. So we are very grateful for that, but we have a big backlog facing us in DeKalb County. Even though we were still working through the pandemic, jury trials were on hold until we could safely return. And so jury trials have resumed in May. We've been having a lot of jury trials since then and more in-person hearings. I believe my office, we have had since May, we've had 26 jury trials so far. So we are working hard to make sure that people have their day in court, and this additional funding will certainly help us provide with additional personnel for that.
Claudia, you all had to retrofit the courtrooms, didn't you? Can you talk about that? Because this was a significant operational endeavor.
Yeah, and again, it was always to make sure that people are safe. You know, the public who has to come, the litigants, the lawyers, the staff, the sheriff, the judge, everybody. We had to and wanted to make sure that people were safe. So there is, before you go into the courthouse, everyone must go through a medical screening, answer certain questions and have your temperature taken. Masks are mandatory to be worn in the courthouse at all times. The only times, and it's up to the individual judges, is when as lawyers, if we're arguing or we're cross-examining a witness, then some judges, if we request it, will allow us to lower our mask, but otherwise masks are mandated. There is plexiglass with the jury box back in the gallery where the different benches are. Social distancing is still maintained. There is, the sanitary, whenever we go up to the podium as a lawyer and we're making an argument, we have a wipe that we make sure to wipe down before the next lawyer, the next person has to go up. We have a gold standard air filtration system. There are portable air filtration systems in each of the courtroom. So we have really done everything that we could to resume courts and protect everybody that comes into the courthouse.
Yes, and we have Superior Court Judge Chief Asha Jackson, who really led the charge for when to reopen the courthouse, right? Yes.
I mean, many thanks to her leadership. I think one other thing that I can mention, because I certainly don't hear this across the state, is DeKalb County is very collaborative. So as soon as this happened, back in April of 2020, we formed a courthouse COVID task force. And we met bi-weekly for over a year. And that involved, all the different partners that intersect with the courthouse, including the clerk's office, prosecutors, defenders, sheriff, judges, everybody that it took, where we would strategize, where we would discuss these issues that were important to the courthouse community and the public that we serve. And so we met bi-weekly for over a year addressing these issues, but many thanks to Judge Jackson for her leadership during this most unusual time.
Yes. Well, thank you for all you do to keep the wheels of justice turning. I know that COVID really had a significant impact. I know education certainly, but the justice system was the other one that was heavily impacted by this. So now I want to turn to Chief Ramos. Hello, Chief. How are you today?
How are you?
There are a couple of initiatives and programs that I wanted to ask you about. A couple of months ago, there was an article in the HAC about 2 community police officers that have been brought on to DeKalb County. And I think they're part of the CSA program. Is that correct? And can you tell us, maybe I'm getting that wrong, because I'm not the best with acronyms, but can you talk about that program and can you talk about those officers and how they're doing?
Yes, and thank you for the opportunity. So the CSA stands for Community Service Aides. And what they are, they're not actually sworn officers. They're 2 civilians. And what they do is they go to low-level calls. And so the purpose of that is to free up the officers to deal with calls that law enforcement officers have to go to. So the community service aides will respond to a theft of a bicycle, an abandoned vehicle, some type of traffic hazard. If your house has been burglarized and it's already been searched, they'll go by and write the report. So the whole purpose and goal is for them to free up the officers to have more time to do more things that officers need to do, rather than things that someone like a CSA can accomplish. So it frees up the officer to do law enforcement functions.
And how many CSAs do we have in DeKalb County?
We only have 2. It's a pilot program, and they are in the East Precinct. And actually, we evaluated some of their work product today, and they're answering about as many calls as the police officers are. Obviously, they're different type of calls. So what that means is that they're freeing up the officer, and that's the key. The key is to allow the officer to have more free time to do what they need to do. And it's been shown to be effective. Like I said, just this morning, we had the meeting where we were evaluating them, and they are writing as many reports as the officers are in the East Precinct they watch.
Was DeKalb County the first county in the region to do a CSA program?
They are. There's one that's similar. I believe it's in Marietta, and they have a similar program. I'm not sure how theirs work, but I got the idea from a program that we have in Florida. And in Florida, they're called public service aides, and they function a little bit different, but the whole concept is to free up the officers to do law enforcement functions.
So there's another initiative and program that I wanted to ask you about, and that is the PALS program. I'm familiar with this program because there was a group of leaders that worked on this organization to kind of work on their strategic plan. Can you talk about PALS and what that stands for and the programs of that organization?
Okay, so PAL stands for the Police Athletic League. And even though our PAL unit is very small, the impact that they have in our community is very big. They are really embedded in the community. They have holiday initiatives. They have summer initiatives. They host summer camps where they bring the youths in. Even though we've had COVID, we didn't give that up. We did summer camp via Zoom. So we did cheerleading classes. We did finance classes. They actually are hosting a career development program where they host 10 youths for an 8-week program. They bring people in to speak to them about social media hazards, entrepreneurship. They learn about etiquette. They learn about finance management. We also partnered up with businesses in the community that have allowed them to come in. They've interviewed with these businesses, and they all leave the program with employment. So I think that's really impactful when you bring a youth in, teach them about life, and then also allow them to walk away from the program with a job. So we're kind of building them up for success. So we're on our 3rd session thus far, and I find that it's been very successful. All of our youth minus 1 have left the job employed. And the one that did not have employment is because they were doing dual enrollment in college. And that was due to the time and effort of the PAL unit. So the PAL unit has been awarded some funding through the American Rescue Plan. And part of that is because the county realizes that they've been doing very good work. And they want to have a standalone building where they are in the community where the youth can come to them as well. Rather than us going out into the community, they can come into a building where we're located. They can find us. We plan to have computer programs, finance programs, etiquette programs, in addition to athletics. They do dance, they do basketball, they do a myriad of things to make sure that the youth have officers that they can talk to and that they can feel a part of. And I know you mentioned the PAL unit, but I also wanted to take a moment to talk about our community policing unit, which is something that we created as well. It's a group of 7 officers and 2 sergeants, and their sole function is to be in the community. They partner up with local businesses. They partner with nonprofit organizations. They come into our communities with these nonprofits and they assist with resources. They help with food. They help with clothing. We're currently having a clothing and shoe drive because they've encountered youth that don't have socks in the winter, don't have coats. They have homeless people that are out there. They partner up with community development and they also deal with the homeless. So they do so much in our community that our officers that go from call to call cannot do. So we wanted to make sure that we had a unit that was out there that simply dealt with the community, interacted with them in a non-informal setting so that the community knows that we're here to assist them, not just protect and serve, but also to help. And so we do a good job with that. Community policing unit and POW have partnered up on several initiatives, and we hope to continue to be present in our community so that they know that they can turn to us when needed.
So how many youth participate in PALS? You may have mentioned it, but could you repeat the number?
Depending on the initiative, but for our career development program, we sign up 10 youth per session because we do it in person. So we want to make sure that we respect the social distancing rules. So we have 10 youth per session. But for the other events, it's a limitless. So we had a Halloween event where we brought families in to a secure setting. We partnered up with Park and Recreation, and we actually hosted an event where we had vendors, we had food, we had music, we played games, we gave them treats, and we must have had at least 300 children and family members come through just for a Halloween event. So as I said, the POW unit is very small, but their reach is very big in our community.
Yeah, I'll just add, Maria, that when I was mayor of Clarkston, we partnered with DeKalb POW. We paid them, money. We appropriated money from our city budget to do a midnight basketball league every summer for the previous 4 years, and it had over easily 50 plus, teenagers, mostly boys, but there was gals there as well. And I mean, that's just like a very clear example of like, there's some situations where some youth don't have a place to go, or they don't feel like they can go back home and they need some sort of safe place. And Detective Ricketts, he's who we worked with, and I think he's still involved in leading POW, and just the care, the respect, the compassion that those officers in that mindset, in that role, provide some youth who really, have nowhere else to go in some situations, is really moving, because I met with them, played basketball with them every summer, and and unfortunately not every, there was always a story that one or two, they really went the other direction, and then that's where I think Claudia's team comes in to support. But the goal, I think, of POW is to create that diversion, so that they're on the right path, and that we're not abandoning or ignoring their situations. And so I found it to be a tremendously effective program. So with joy, I voted and spoke out in support of the expanding of the POW program, because it really makes a huge impact.
Commissioner, how much additional funding was awarded to POW from the county?
Hundreds of thousands of dollars. I don't have the spreadsheet right in front of me, Chief, but I want to say 250,000 plus is what I remember. I know that the building and some vehicles was another expense, but yeah, hundreds of thousands of dollars.
And Chief, I know you all are looking at building a building for this program. So where do the programs occur now?
We partner up a lot with the Department of Park and Recreation. They've been able to help us. We've also been partnering up with the YMCA. The POW is very resourceful. So they're always finding a location to host their events. And even a lot of them we host in Zoom. Our career development program, we partnered up with George Piedmont College, and they've allowed us to have it there. We wanted the children to be in an environment where they feel like they're actually in a university being taught. And so we are very good at creating partnerships. There's never a lack of people who want to help POW, because they understand that what they do is very impactful, and they also want to be a part of it. So we're hoping to have that standalone building soon. so that now the youth can just come to us rather than us trying to go to them.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that initiative. Are there any other initiatives and programs, Commissioner Terry, that we haven't covered tonight that you are aware of that the county is funding that we should discuss?
Well, I think there's, certainly some of I mentioned the flock cameras, and Chief and maybe Claudia can probably check me on some of these facts, but the vast majority of violent crime that's committed in our communities is committed by a very small number of individuals. And so the having the ability to deploy the flock cameras, the license plate readers, that was a big investment I think we made, and I think we should do more of it, because one of the issues in justice, I think, particularly is trying to make sure that victims are given justice as well, and sometimes that means actually really supporting the detective work. I mean, for years and years and years, we heard that so many murders would go unsolved and assaults would go unsolved. And I think some of the tools that we've given the police department, I think, is going to help with the detective work and the gang unit. I mean, I can't underscore how worried I am that because you read about gangs and you hear about them and you might watch The Sopranos and things, and it might be kind of a funny kind of thing, or even seen as a glorifying kind of thing. But there are people being killed in our communities senselessly because of gun violence over just the most ridiculous crap. Gang initiations, retributive murders because someone didn't like the way they looked at someone. I mean, the level of insidiousness that exists in a very small number of people in our community, that are causing this tremendous amount of violence and death, is really concerning. And, look, I mean, Chief Ramos talking about expanding the community service aids so that officers can respond to the real emergencies. You can't underscore that enough, because if we don't have our officer recruitment levels up, if we're not supporting the current law enforcement system, then we have situations where we can't respond, or we can't do the detective work. We can't put in the extra community policing hours. And so one of my commitments into the future is to address what really is, it's happening in the sheriff's office, the police department, it's happening in city law enforcement. There is a lot of individuals who are just choosing not to go into law enforcement. And I would just further say that, individuals who really want to see police reforms and see sort of a new wave of policing in our country, it's going to happen from the inside. It's going to happen by recruiting good people to serve in law enforcement, in all of our public safety organizations, institutions. But right now we have an aging police force. We don't have enough young people getting into the line of work. And I know it's something that we're addressing and we're doing a lot of, but it's going to continue to be a challenge. And we don't want a situation where, no one wants to be in a situation where you have to call 911 and you're not sure if someone's going to arrive within the few minute window that they need to arrive because of some of those shortages. And I think thankfully that, isn't, a tremendous issue in DeKalb. But we hear about it across the metro region. So there's a lot in there. There's a lot more to do. The first tranche of American Rescue Plan money was received in May of this year, and the second half will be received in May of next year. And so I think we have some real opportunities, particularly because the Treasury Department has allowed this money to be obligated through 2026. And so I think what we need to do is think very holistically about what can we do to set up some long-term funding, at least through 2026, for some of these programs that we're talking about that we know are making a demonstrable difference, whether it's in the accountability courts, the mental health response, the expanding the repertoire and the capacity of our police departments. These are the type of investments that if we make, will reduce crime, will reduce officer-involved incidents, and will create more of that community cohesion to support building the whole person. And, I'm really glad for the work that Claudia does to sort of get folks back on track. But the Frederick Douglass, I think, said it the best when he said that it's easier to build strong men than to repair broken ones. And whether we're talking about investing in early learning, education, universal after-school programs, job programs, local job programs, these are the type of investments that reduce crime, that reduce violence. It's just simple as that. But we can't stop funding the response to crime. So it's going to take a both and approach. And thankfully, because of the president and the Senate and the House of Representatives, we have that American Rescue Plan money to put some things into action.
So there's a really good question that came in about the community policing unit. Chief Ramos, if someone wanted to donate items like survival kits and blankets and items that could be useful to people in the community that the community policing unit can distribute, how could we collect such items?
They can reach out to my office and we can put them in contact with the community policing unit so they can go by and pick them up. We don't want to inconvenience them. It would be very appreciative. So you can email dkpdchief@DeKalbCountyGA.gov and I will put them in touch with the community policing unit. If they provide their name and contact number, I will have someone reach out to them and we'll coordinate a pickup.
Great, thank you for that. And then there was a question that came in specifically about mental health services, and this one's for you, Renee. What are some mental health service resources for the Hispanic community?
That's actually a difficult question to answer. One of the things that happened several years back was the requirement that if we receive public funding that we can only serve people that are considered lawfully present in this country. And so we know that there are individuals that are here and not able to access services, and that becomes difficult. We can provide services through us at the DeKalb Community Service Board. Is certainly a resource for individuals that do meet the requirements of lawful presence. Other than that, I don't know what other resources there are in the community at this point. I kind of lost touch with that with COVID and not knowing who all is back in action. But we certainly can provide services and have for many, many years.
Great, thank you. I am keeping an eye on the time, Commissioner Terry. We are at 7:03 p.m. I think we promised a 1-hour program. I'll
add something to that because when I was referencing my running for office last year, I put together in March of 2020 a criminal justice reform policy, which honestly was from the outside looking in. I understood sort of aspects of criminal justice through my time as mayor of Clarkston. And so I laid out this policy platform based on, some assumptions, but also some experiences. But I did drop that in the chat there so folks can read sort of, what I ran on when I ran for commission. And for the most part, all those things are still true as goals of mine. There's just additional layers and nuance to it. And then I just want to take a moment because, the issue that I know a lot of people are asking about is Matthew Zodick Williams. And what we know is that there's an ongoing investigation. And we just can't comment or talk about it because there's an investigation going on. Now, when the investigation comes out, there'll be opportunity to discuss it further. But I would not ever in any situation, presume to know all the answers based on very limited information. And so we just can't talk about that tonight. What I will say is that the Board of Commissioners, at first and foremost, is the body that appropriates the funds and sets policy. So when we talk about creating a future that is more just, that is more compassionate, when we talk about changes to police or public safety or anything in this county, it is policy making. And I put in my in the chat there my op-ed to the Decatur-ish newspaper about, again, some of the things that we're doing and some of the things I think that we should consider doing moving forward. And these are policy discussions, because the way that the organizational act works in DeKalb County is the CEO runs the government and is the administrator of the money that we approve. And the commissioner's there to do land use and zoning. That's our other number one job, but then approve the budget and to set policy. And so everyone should be aware of the IRPS committee. That is the committee that the Board of Commissioners works on policy related to public safety and criminal justice. So if anyone is interested in future policy changes, you can certainly reach out to me as a commissioner. Commissioner Mirtha Davis Johnson is the chair of the IRPS committee. That is the exact forum to discuss things that we want to see sort of long-term changes. And look, I think this conversation is going to continue, and I'm very proud of I think the response to the calls from the community to do more to address police reforms. I think CEO Thurman has laid out I think a very forward-thinking agenda. I think you'd be hard pressed to look at any other jurisdiction in Metro Atlanta that is doing the level of things that we are doing and the sort of the array of things that we're doing. And then again, calling back to what Renee pointed out earlier, the mental health crisis response unit was the first of its kind, not just for DeKalb, but for the Southeast. And we're expanding it because we want to make sure that, that throughout the days and the nights that the police have that support capacity. And I'm actually very proud that the Community Service Board, Renee and Director Vandermeer are thinking sort of creatively about how do we create additional layers of input and overlap to where it could be mental health, it could be social work, it could be clinical response. There's a whole array of challenges there. And I don't want to put Chief Ramos on the spot, because I know that the 911 calls and sort of the calls that come in to address mental health, it's a lot. And I don't know if you have like sort of a ballpark of how many calls that come in that could have a mental health component to it. Do you know that, Chief?
I don't oversee 911, so
oh, that's right, you don't. That's a different department.
So yeah, I'd hate to be able to speak about something I don't know.
Okay, you're right. It's in the thousands because I asked for that, and that just underscores the challenge that not just the police have, but also the Community Service Board and all the other wraparound mental health services. Is there is a tremendous demand out there. We are a growing county, 750,000 people. And our crisis center at the Community Service Board has about 40 beds. Okay, and under COVID restrictions, it's less because there can't have people on top of each other, and just let that sink in that there are services available, but it gets to capacity really quick, and there are times when it is stretched really thin, and so it is hard to judge one single situation and say that it is the situation that is happening all the time. The experience I saw with the gang units, peeling back the layer of what police have to go through on a daily basis, they deserve our support, particularly the ones that are doing that really intensive community work and are taking time out of not just other shifts, but doing sort of the extra effort to try to be responsive to the issues of the community. We ask police officers to basically deal with everything that, quite frankly, we don't want to deal with. And it means more training, it means more financial support, it means more acknowledgement and opportunities for advancement and coordination. But we've got to increase the mental health funding in our county. We've got to support the community policing initiatives and the mental health policing initiatives that Chief Ramos talked about. That is our path forward to a more just DeKalb County. And I'm looking forward to continuing that discussion and continuing to push those policy changes that I think will make that happen.
So before we close out on this, Commissioner Terry, can you repeat for people if they want to get involved with the ERPS committee and do some policy work with you? What is the best way for them to do that?
Oh yeah, everyone hopefully got the email for the event tonight. So you can just reply back to that email. And Kelly Cato in my office is my district coordinator. And, again, like the county commissioners don't run the government. So we can't tell anyone what to do. That literally is not our job. But we're happy to pass on information. We're happy to pass on contact, ways to support. And then absolutely, if anyone is interested in working on criminal justice reform policy, policing policy, court, policy, some of the things that Claudia talked about, that Judge Jackson is working on, I mean, there is ample opportunity to get involved in it. And so, join us. Like we are asking for you to join us, in this effort. It's going to take the whole community.
Yes, and I also want to clarify for people that Commissioner Terry does a separate event that are town hall meetings. The talks with TEDs are not town hall meetings. These are informative types of events, and we do about 3 or 4 of them a year. But if you want to participate in a town hall meeting with Commissioner Terry, are you going to try to do another one before the end of the year, or are you going to wait until the beginning of next year to do one?
Yeah, I think we'll probably do another town hall. And then I will say that starting in 2022, we're going to be looking to do more hybrid meetings. And so we'll do in person while also having a virtual component. And it's kind of a logistical jujitsu, but we've got Ashley at our production team who, knows how to do this and is a certified, CDC planner. So we're going to create safe in-person events. And, we can talk face to face there, and then we'll have an opportunity for anyone who wants to stay at home or, can't get away from the kids. I mean, I think the elegance of the hybrid system is that more people participate. And then, so we'll do one before the end of the year, probably closer to mid-December. And then anyone, anytime wants to call me, text me, email me, meet me for coffee, meet me at their house, whatever. I will go anywhere. This is my full-time job. So anything that we didn't get to tonight, because as you said, Maria, it was more of a informative session. The town halls are really when we get a lot more give and take from the constituents. But you don't have to wait for those town halls. You can come directly to me, and I will return that call. We will set that meeting up. So please don't be shy about reaching out. We'll make it happen in the schedule, and I appreciate everyone's participation in this. And then there's all the information there. Scheduling for through Kelly, and then that is my email address, so I do answer my own emails.
Great. Well, I want to take a moment to thank our panel, Renee, Claudia, Chief Ramos. Thank you all so much for your time this evening. And Commissioner Terry, thank you for your service to the county. I look forward to our next talks with Ted. And with that, we're going to say good night. Have a good evening, everyone. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.